Take a look at a build of Riversong, which is one of the new commanders from the Doctor Who set. It cost a red, a blue, and one generic to cast, and it has a couple different things going for it. It has an ability called Meet in Reverse. You draw cards from the bottom of your library rather than the top, so that's going to play into our deck's build a little bit and the strategy that we're going for. And then it has spoilers. Whenever an opponent scries, surveils, or searches their library, put a +1/+1 counter on Riversong, and then Riversong deals damage to that player equal to its power. Now that damage does not count as commander damage because commander damage is only done through combat, but it could, ping away a little bit of damage here and there. We run a Planeswalker in the deck, Rowan, Scholar of Sparks, which also could be Will, Scholar of Frost. We're mainly running it for Rowan's ability because Rowan, the +1, deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then if you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn, it's going to deal 3 damage to each opponent, so it's going to add a little bit of damage over the course of the game too, because we want to be able to draw cards. Let's take a look at some of the creatures that we have. We run Fairy Seer because when it enters the battlefield, we're going to scry 2, so the whole point of this deck is to be able to scry cards to the bottom. That way we can draw them through our commander's ability. So you're going to see a lot of scrying and shifting around of cards in our deck. Silver Raven, ETB, scry 1. Baral just helps us to make some things cheaper. Dockside is good value because it's going to make us some treasures. Fairy Vandal, whenever we draw a second card, we put a +1/+1 counter on it, which is kind of nice. Omen Speaker, ETB, scry 2. Sigiled Starfish, we can tap it to scry 1. Time Stream Navigator is here because it is going to pair with another creature that we'll talk about in a minute to give us a combo. We do run a couple combos and ways to actually close it out because our commander itself doesn't necessarily have a way to win the game, so we run a couple combos, and we'll talk about what that is in a moment. Magus of the Wheel, we can pay a red and a generic, sacrifice Magus of the Wheel. Each player discards their hand and then draw 7. Anger, as long as it's in our graveyard and we control a mountain, Anger will have haste. So with Time Stream Navigator and Anger, that is going to allow us to hopefully replay Time Stream Navigator. We take an extra turn, we put it on the bottom of our library, and then we're going to draw, and that would allow us to take infinite extra turns. Archmage Emeritus is here because when we cast or copy an instant or sorcery, we're going to draw a card, so hopefully keeping a full grip of cards in our hand. Junk Trawler to put a card from our graveyard on the bottom of our library, so if something gets removed, we can hopefully put it back and then draw it. Transplant Theorist is here because when an artifact enters the battlefield, we may draw a card, which is good, and then we can pay 2, put target card from our graveyard to the bottom of our library. So again, if something gets removed, we're able to put it on the bottom, and then with our commander, hopefully draw it. Arjun is here because whenever we cast a spell that puts a card in our hand to the bottom of our library in any order, we then draw that many cards, which is nice. Nira is here because it's going to help us put stuff on the bottom. Niv Mizzet is here for another combo and way to ping some damage because, as I already said earlier, our commander doesn't really win us the game, but Niv Mizzet paired with some other things could. Other Niv Mizzet helps us draw a card. When we draw a card, we ping something. Locust God is good because as we're drawing cards, we're going to make 1/1 blue-red insect creature tokens with haste, which is great for us because that eventually gives us things that can start swarming the table and going crazy and killing people, or just give us some good blockers. Sorceries that we have in the deck, of course, we're running Faceless Looting, draw 2, discard 2, ponder, put cards from back in any order and then shuffle, Preordain to scry, Serum Visions to scry, Cathartic Reunion lets us draw, Expressive Iteration helps to put things on the bottom if we need to, Tormenting Voice is to draw, and then as well as other things that are going to allow us to draw cards because we need to be able to have a decent grip of cards so we're able to do stuff. Instants are pretty much what you would expect, things that just manipulate, like Brainstorm, Consider, Anticipate. Those things all help us manipulate our library a little bit so that we are able to shift stuff around and get stuff on the bottom as we want. Artifacts, we've got a couple that are really key, like Tel Jalad Stylus, which helps us to put a permanent we own on the bottom of our library. So if someone is trying to remove something of ours, we can just put it on the bottom instead, which is good. Rito Lantern, we can pay 3, put target card in a graveyard on the bottom of its own library. So this could be something in our graveyard or our opponents. So if our opponents have a combo piece that has been removed and we're afraid they're going to get it back, we can at least get it on the bottom of their library, making it harder for them to get it back. TARDIS is here because whenever it attacks, if we control a Time Lord, which our commander is, the next spell we cast this turn has Cascade, and we may Planeswalk. So that's kind of cool for us. Palantir of Orthonk is here because at the beginning of our end step, we put an influence counter on it, and then we scry 2. So this is just another way to scry 2. And then target opponent may draw a card. If that player doesn't, we mill X cards, where X is the number of influence counters on it, and then that player loses life equal to the total mana of those cards. So it's another way to help do some damage to our opponents. Teferi's Puzzle Box is here because at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player puts the cards in his or her hand on the bottom of our library in a random order. So for us, this gets stuff on the bottom that we'll draw. For our opponents, this gets stuff on the bottom that they're then not likely to see. So it's very disruptive for our opponents, but it is very good for us. Enchantments, we run things like Curiosity, which combos with Niv Mizzet to go infinite and be able to ping our opponents down and kill the table. Improbable Alliance, because as we're drawing, we want to be able to do something. So this helps make some blue fairy creature tokens with flying and allow us to have blockers or attackers later. Lost Isle of Calling, whenever we scry, we put a verse counter on it, and then we can draw cards later. Omen of the Sea, when it enters the battlefield, we scry 2 and then draw a card, and then we can pay a blue and 2 generic to sacrifice it and scry 2. Ophidian Eye combos with Niv Mizzet the same way that Curiosity does and allows us to go infinite and ping our opponents down. We do run a couple key lands in the deck. For example, Castle Vantress is a land that for 2 blue and 2 generic, we can tap it and scry 2, so we can keep things on the bottom of our library. Prismari Campus, we can pay just 4 generic, tap it and scry 1. Rivendell, pay a blue and a generic, tap it, scry 2, activate only if we control legendary creatures, so as long as we've got our commander, that's usually pretty good for us. Zalfirin Void, when it enters the battlefield, we scry 2. So mainly this deck is all about scrying for us to be able to maximize Riversong's meet in reverse ability so that we're able to then draw from the bottom of our library. We're getting to look at the cards so we know what's there, which is great. It's always good to have knowledge of cards, and then we get to rearrange them by putting them on the bottom, and if we're scrying 2, we can put them in the order that we want so that we are then able to draw them and really control what we're drawing. And that gives us a huge advantage over the game where other players are drawing at random. Maybe they're tutoring and then drawing one thing they know, but not consistently every turn, every draw, getting to know what that is and really controlling the game. So this is an interesting build of Riversong. Let us know in the comments below what you think of it. If you've got a build of Riversong and we have other cards that we left out, we'd love to hear some suggestions in the comments. And overall, if you've played Riversong, we would love to hear some of your thoughts about the deck and your experience with it. Let us know in the comments below all of those things. We appreciate it. Have a great day.